maybe the biggest news, at least of today. Russell Wilson obviously was big news over the weekend with the Steelers. But for today, Kirk Cousins signed a 4-year, $180 million deal with the Atlanta Falcons. Rob, 2 years, $90 million guaranteed in the first 2 years. And then I think total is $100 million guaranteed. But that's a hefty deal. What are your thoughts?
Kirk Cousins been around, Chris, been paid a lot of money and hasn't performed. He might be one of the most overpaid, overrated quarterbacks in the NFL. Because when you look at it, I think he has one playoff win. He got that
1-3.
Right, $75 million. So he doesn't get you to playoffs a lot, and I'm not blaming it all on him because, you got to have a defense and other things that have to, work out. So I'm not blaming him there, but in big games, Chris, terrible, right? Primetime games, for whatever reason, not good.
Sunday night, Monday night, Thursday night, all of that.
Like all those games are bad. One playoff win. And people and he's coming off an Achilles. I give him credit. There's so few quarterbacks, Chris, that people are running and knocking the door down to give $100 million to Kirk Cousins is incredible. We saw
he'll be 36 in August, Rob. So when he starts the season, he'll be 36.
I mean, if you're the Atlanta Falcons, Chris, did you really? I mean, I know Ritter was not good. I get it.
No,
not good at all. Okay, so I get that part. Is he an upgrade? Sure. Is this paying the position rather than a person? Yeah, and teams do it. We saw Daniel Jones. If you're paying Daniel Jones $40 million, I guess, Chris, people have no choice than to give Kirk Cousins, who during the regular season puts up good numbers. Puts
up numbers.
I got it. But a lot of things we've talked about, a lot of empty calorie numbers as well. And I'm not on that bandwagon. I'm not a big Kirk Cousins fan. Do I think the Falcons are in the mix now because they have Kirk Cousins? No. Are they going to be better than they were with Ritter? Absolutely. But I'll give the guy credit. He's been getting paid. He got that. You remember when he left Washington? Got a $75 million fully guaranteed contract, which is incredible.
Well, guys should look at him. And understand, I get why guys don't want to be franchised because it's only for a year, right? And this is a sport where your career can end, or that might be somewhat unusual, but you can certainly get banged up and injured, Rob, to the point where you're not as good anymore, right? So for a year, guys want longer term contracts. So I understand why there's apprehension to take the franchise tag, but Kirk Cousins, Dak Prescott, Rob, they're examples of how if you stay healthy and perform fairly well, it can actually fill your pockets. And so you're right, good for him. He's gotten tons of money. I think he'll end up, Rob, when he's done, I think he may be one of the 5 highest paid players in NFL history. And we get that obviously it's always guys are getting paid more and more.
Right.
But, yeah, I mean, for a guy that's not a tier 1 quarterback, probably tier 2, lower end of tier 2, that's saying a lot. But, Rob, I actually like the deal for Atlanta. And last week I was thinking, you know what, they'd be better off going for Justin Fields. He's young. He matches with the age of Bijan Robinson, their running back from last year, was a rookie. Drake London, some of their young players, even Kyle Pitts, who I think is only 23. But when I really started looking at it, Rob, and getting deeper into it, the Falcons wanted Kirk Cousins far more than Justin Fields because their new offensive coordinator, Zach Robinson, is from the Rams franchise. And he was under Sean McVay. And that is this type of offense they're going to run. And they were skeptical as to how great of a passer Justin Fields can be in that overall, but also in their system. They want a guy that's more of a passer, and obviously Kirk Cousins is that. And so I get that, Rob. And when I look at their roster, You've got Drake London and you got some pretty good receivers. Bijan Robinson is a very nice running back. Their offensive line is top 5 in the league according to Pro Football Focus. Offensively, they've got everything you need to be elite offensively. Not just good, but elite. And Kirk Cousins, as you said, puts up huge numbers. And so I like it from that standpoint. Their defense wasn't bad. It was middle of the road in terms of points allowed, 21 a game, which isn't terrible. And so, Rob, I think this was a good move. Nowadays, we talk about all the time with running backs, you want to really, they're at their best in their first 5-7 years. And so why, work with an unproven quarterback who you don't know if he's going to be very good or not when you got maybe Bijan Robinson's best years coming up in the next few. And so I like it. That division, obviously the goal is not only to win the division, but they are very capable. Right now, we'll make our picks obviously in the fall, but right now I like them better than Tampa. They were right there last year battling Tampa for the division. And now with Kirk Cousins, I think he puts them over the hump in the division. Now, obviously, as you said, he hasn't been very good in big games, and not just playoff games, but overall big games. But you got to get to the big games before, and let him prove, again, he's not great in big games. But they weren't a player last year. They felt like they had everything offensively except the quarterback. Now they've got a good quarterback, and if they get to big games and he is horrible, okay. But Atlanta's hasn't really been relevant for a while since Matt Ryan was at his best. And this makes them relevant again. I do think they will be a playoff team. And, I always say, Rob, and again, no taking away from his record because it is what it is as far as big games. But you're that guy that can't win the big one or the big ones until you're not anymore. Matthew Stafford, 0-3 in Detroit. They said he couldn't win the big one. You saw him, and he has some talent. We talked about it, Calvin Johnson and Ndamukong Suh and some guys. Never even won a playoff game until he did when he won the Super Bowl with the Rams. I'm not saying this is going to be a Super Bowl, but I'm just saying I like the move. It makes them relevant. To me, it puts them in the playoffs, not just the playoff conversation. And so, and Rob, it's only 2 years really guaranteed. And so I like it. I think it was a good move by the Falcons. And after, again, looking into it, I understand why they would go for him instead of Justin Fields.
Yeah, I disagree. Cousins, his numbers are there. You just said it. You are what your tape says you are and your record says you are. 3-10 career Monday Night Football games, 2-6 on the road in primetime games with the Vikings. Like, there were situations, Chris, where that Vikings team was pretty good and had a chance because they had a really good defense at one point. And 12-18 all-time in night games. So those are usually your big primetime games.
Right. And
it just hasn't lived up to it. And I'm not, I get the Ritter thing, Chris, so I'm not sitting here saying I would rather, right, that's not what I'm saying. But I'm not convinced that they're better than Tampa Bay. I'd still take Baker Mayfield and what they did a year ago with Baker coming back over the Falcons. So we'll see as we go forward with Kirk Cousins. But I'm definitely out on Kirk Cousins as far as I would have given maybe a chance to Justin Fields, a younger guy with maybe a bigger upside. He's not 36, coming off an Achilles, coming off a guy who doesn't win big games. And we don't know. People have said all along that Fields is, with the coaching situation, Chris, with the talent around him maybe not being as good. And maybe in Atlanta he would have been able to finally take that next step, and then you have something long term and your quarterback for a franchise, for the ages or for the next decade, and you don't have that with Kirk Cousins. So